And we are going to have a very interesting show tonight. We've got an investigative reporter, Jim Stone, on the line, and he is doing this under some duress from a remote location. And his link to his site is on the front page of my website, which is, of course, projectcamelot.org or projectcamelotportal.com. Those links take you to the same place. Look for the radio show, an icon and announcement, and you'll see the link to his site. He's got an amazing amount of information on his website. We're kind of let Jim take the lead as to where he wants to basically take us today. We're going to look into Fukushima, the information he's got in regard to that incident, and many other things. So, Jim, how you doing?
Oh, I'm doing okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Okay. You had initially contacted me wanting to talk about the grid and the fact that it was going to be delinked. What has happened in our to our electrical system? A lot of the listeners know what the grid is and how it's connected from coast to coast. And the way that I knew that they were going to delink the grid was they said that clocks were going to run on the East Coast faster than they were going to run on the West Coast. This can only happen if the grid is no longer connected, because as soon as you have any kind of a frequency difference, you'll end up with a phase mismatch between the coasts, and the grid will basically short out and shut down. They went into specifics on the report that, like, Texas is going to run faster than Massachusetts, and Massachusetts was going to run slower than Arkansas. So I knew that they weren't just delinking it between the DC lines, which you can have opposite ends of the DC lines run at different frequencies. What has happened then is the reason why this would be done is to weaken this country in a war. If you have the grid delinked, what it means is that take out a power company in Texas, it means that Maryland can't feed them power anymore. It means they can't get power out of Colorado. It means they go dark and they're gone. The American grid, the way it was hooked up, was a miracle of power stability. I remember as an electrician, many 5-year stretches where the power never even glitched once. Now that the grid has been delinked, I noticed within the first few months of that, 3 or 4 substantial power outages lasting minutes and numerous glitches. This would mean, like, you'd have to go back to your stove and reset the clock.
Okay,
one major...
Jim, I'm going to interrupt you here because we needed you to give sort of an introduction to yourself. I have given you a brief introduction.
Oh, okay.
What I really would like you to do is talk a little bit about your background, how you got to where you are today.
Okay, well, early on in life, I worked for the National Security Agency, and that's where I got my education on the technical side. In 1992, I realized that there was a major problem with our country and the way it was running. I realized there was a problem in the universities, and that set me on a major trail trying to uncover who was causing the problems in this country, who was ripping it apart, who was enslaving us financially, who was writing all the crazy laws. And I have spent 20 years since then getting to the bottom of the story. I spent 2 years inside the Jewish community and uncovered a whole bunch of garbage there. And I had made a whole bunch of discoveries, but I had gotten really lazy about publishing them. I was just thinking, well, I'll do it next year, I'll do it next year, I'll do it next year. And then Fukushima happened. And when those reactors exploded, I knew, because of my technical background, that there was no way that could happen. So I began to look into the Fukushima issue. And if you go on my website, and the page that I've linked to is just jimstonefreelance.com, but if you go /Fukushima1.html, My investigation of Fukushima is on that page. I got my hands on all the classified information. I interviewed the reactor engineers that actually designed and built Fukushima. I did an in-depth investigation into the earthquake and the realities of that. And it ended up being an absolutely massive report that took 500 hours. But if you go there, you're going to see, first of all, Japan never had a 9.0. And that's pretty well proven by the fact that that no buildings collapsed in Sendai. If you look at all the tsunami videos, that tsunami is ripping through cities that are completely unscathed by an earthquake.
Okay. So let me ask you: if it didn't have an earthquake, what's your position? What did it?
Well, obviously, I don't know if any of your readers have ever heard of Joe Vial's. I have a link to one of his articles that he did on Indonesia and that tsunami there, which was originally reported as a 6.3 earthquake. Then it got bumped to like an 8. Then it got bumped to a 9.1 for tsunami effects. Well, it turns out that when you have a Richter scale, your seismogram, those can be off by percent. They can't be off by orders of magnitude, and they can't be off by 3 orders of magnitude. So it's impossible to get a reading off of a seismogram that, you can't get a 9.0 reading off of the seismogram for an earthquake that was a 6.3. Well, India got onto this and studied the seismograms, and they determined that it was a nuclear weapon that set it off, and they also captured the EMP signature of that nuclear detonation, which happened off the coast of Indonesia. And if you read the Joe Vial's report, that's not my report. You go into it, you'll find out that something was really fishy there. And so what we have now with Fukushima and nuclear weapons being set off in the ocean there is a new form of terrorism. We had, I'm sure that your listeners are well aware of false flag terror in the name of Arabs, in the name of whatever country they want the false flag terror to be blamed on. People got way too familiar with this. And they were looking, right immediately, internet investigations that go underway, saying, well, who really caused this? We know that was a false flag. So the next method of the elite then was to cause these terror attacks and get the job done in the name of the environment. And
okay, and I agree with you. Actually, I have whistleblower testimony that told me that there was a nuke planted actually underneath Fukushima. That's what I was told.
I got it. I got the company that planted it. I got the reason they planted it. I got everything. It's all in the.
Okay, and what about Stuxnet? Because does Stuxnet and the I guess the Israelis factor into this? Isn't that right?
Yes. Israel wrote a virus called Stuxnet, and this virus was specifically designed to go in and attack industrial control systems. And what it does is it makes everything go haywire on the machinery while keeping all the readouts that the operators can see normal. And the machinery can go totally haywire. Stuxnet will go into a system and learn what normal looks like.
Yeah.
So it sits there in idle mode for months or however long they want it to learn this system. In the case of Fukushima, Stuxnet was planted in that system for about 4 months. It learned that when the operators pull the control rods out, that the temperatures are going to drop at this rate in this way, that when they put them in, it's going to rise in this way, the pressures are going to rise, the turbines are going to speed up, or not speed up, but put out X amount of current. So Stuxnet sat there and learned everything that the operators at that facility did over a 4-month period. The company that planted it was called Magna BSP. I have them nailed. I got a picture of the nuclear weapon that they planted in the facility. What they did was they sat there in Israel. They triggered this tsunami, and they sat there in Israel waiting for the tsunami to hit. the reactors did automatically scram right when the earthquake hit because it's like these nuclear facilities are set up to be inherently safe. So if anything like seismically happens or anything electrically happens, the reactors automatically go into standby mode. And this happened at Fukushima. Well, what happened about 40 minutes after when the tsunami hit is they shut off the generators. They managed to get a remote internet link into the reactor room, and this was reported in the Jerusalem Post. This company, Magna BSP, which had its unrealistically huge nuke camera inside the Fukushima facility, also got an internet connection to that camera and to the guts of that facility that was in place all the way through the disaster. And they used, either Stuxnet ran in automatic mode until everything blew up, or they administered Stuxnet until everything blew up. But anyway.
So what happened exactly? Because you were kind of giving a blow by blow, and then you stopped. What happened when the tsunami hit? What exactly happened inside the reactor? You're saying it had already gone offline or whatever in standby, as you say.
Yes.
But then what happened when the tsunami hit? Where was the nuke? Was the nuke before or after the tsunami?
If you go to the links page, let's see here. I have that. If you go to the Fukushima page, it's because I understand that better.
I'm on your site.
So it's gemstonefreelance.com/Fukushima.html.
Right.
So I mean Fukushima1.html. Fukushima.html is Japanese. That's no fun.
Okay, but what are you saying? Are you saying, I'm just asking you, can you just tell me what, for the listeners' purposes, the ones especially listening without, internet access at this time, can you explain, did the nuke hit before or after the tsunami?
Oh, this is way after the tsunami. It took them a long time to get reactor 3 to act up in a way that was convincing. The camera was specifically designed to give them radiation readings and temperature readings off the reactor. So they knew when enough mayhem had broken loose to provide plausibility for an explosion, and they set it off. If you look at it says, this is a massive and technical report. If you have troubles understanding it, just look at this classified picture of the vanished reactor. You click on the vanished reactor link, and it'll pull up a diagram, or a little bit of a diagram of the guts of Fukushima and how it's put together. I've got an arrow pointing to where they had the nuclear weapon placed. If you scroll down to the bottom of this picture, you will see an actual photograph of the actual nuke they got into Fukushima. It's right down at the bottom of that picture. And it was disguised as a stereoscopic camera. I have 2 diagrams of gun-type nuclear weapons up against this thing that they got in there. It's obviously a match.
Yeah, and I have gone over this information, I guess, long before I contacted you. So my question to you is, with this information in hand, what do you think is happening? In other words, you're documenting this quite well, and I think other people are too. I think I've come across it a few different places. So what do you think? In other words, it came out of, basically it was an Israeli false flag, right?
Yes, this is a false flag. It was done specifically for 2 reasons. The main one that really got the Israelis worked up and mad at Japan was the offer to enrich uranium for Iran. Well, you know what they did to Iran's nuclear program, and Iran managed to get over it. But Japan was a lot more vulnerable because they actually had a functioning, working reactor that this virus got into. When this virus hit Iran, they were months away from starting up. So really, nothing could really happen. It got in, it messed up their controls, it blew up a few centrifuges, and that was the end of it. In Japan, where we had perfectly working reactors that were going full bore and then got shut down and were fully fueled, I mean, you got a totally different scenario there.
Okay. Now, would you say, and because there's an interesting link here you've got on your site that says, does the Department of Homeland Security, is it trying to keep American industries in the dark about Stuxnet? That's an interesting question. I'd like to go into that.
Well, okay. Do you want to go into that right? Yeah?
Well, I don't want to leave this subject here, though, that we're dealing with in terms of the ramifications of Israel actually going in. Do you think that Israel was acting alone? It's much more likely to think that they're acting in unison with the US.
It's sad to say that other countries most likely were involved. I got plenty of reports of the U.S. Navy being out there over the Japan Trench where the nukes went off. If you scroll down on the Fukushima page, I've got the real epicenter for the earthquake, and I've got the epicenter that the media reported. The real epicenter for this earthquake was 60 miles inland. The epicenter the media reported was 24 miles off the closest peninsula in the Japan Trench. The entire thing was a fabrication. Anyway, I got a little bit sidetracked here.
Okay, I'm sorry, we have a commercial right now. We're gonna come right back with Jim Stone. Really excellent information. We'll be right back.